Hi everyone, today I'm going to be talking to you about how to find the volume of composite shapes. And a composite shape is simply two or more 3D shapes put together to make a bigger shape. So each of these are examples of composite shapes because they are composed of multiple smaller shapes. Like this one is one rectangle above another rectangle. This one's two rectangles together. This one is a cylinder and two halves of a sphere. So composite shapes are made up of smaller shapes. So you can split this shape along a line right here to give you this big rectangular prism and this smaller rectangular prism. And to find the volume of the composite shape, what you do is add the volumes of the smaller shapes that it's made up of. So to find this total volume, you have to find the volume of this and the volume of this, and then add them together. To do this, you have to remember your volume formulas. So these are 6 volume formulas that you should be familiar with, and if not, then they should be on a formula sheet or maybe in your math book when you're trying to do homework. Or maybe your teacher said that you don't have to memorize them because they'll be on the test, but you should at least be familiar with them. So we're going to use these formulas today to find the volume of more complicated shapes. So first we're going to practice with this shape. And first we're going to split the composite shape. So I'm going to split it along this line. You could also split it along a line like this or a line like this. Really, either way is fine. I just chose to do it this way. And then what you're going to do is find the volume of each of the smaller shapes. So I have the big part and the small part. And the formula for a rectangular prism, the volume of it is length times width times height. So I'm going to find the length and the width and the height of this bigger part of the shape. So the length here is 15 centimeters. The width, it doesn't tell us the width right here, but what you can do is add this 5 centimeters and this 5 centimeters because you know that this whole side is the same length as this whole side. So you add 5 times 5, which will give you 10 centimeters, or 5 and 5, which will give you 10 centimeters, and then the last thing is the height, which is also 5 centimeters. So then you take 15 times 10 times 5, which gives you 750 centimeters. And then you find the volume of the smaller part by finding the length, width, and height. And the length in this part, and to find the length in the smaller part, we have to subtract this long side of 20 centimeters by the 15 centimeters that are taken up by the bigger part. So you take 20 to minus 15, and then you're going to multiply that by the 5 centimeter width and the 5 centimeter height, which you know is 5 centimeters because it's the same all the way around, and this tells you that the height is 5 centimeters. So when you multiply 5 times 5 times 5, it will give you 125 centimeters cubed. Another thing, when you're doing volumes, your label is always going to be in cubed units because the units are being multiplied by themselves 3 times. So the last step is to add the volumes. And when you add 750 plus 125, you get a total of 875 centimeters cubed. Now we're going to have to split this shape into its smaller shapes. And this shape kind of looks like it's 3 different shapes, but I'm going to find the volume of it by splitting it into 2 shapes. So if you split it along these lines, you can see that there's a cylinder here, and there's also 2 halves of a sphere. And we're just going to assume that these 2 halves are the same, and that the radius around the whole sphere on both sides is 6 meters. So we split the shape, and now we have to find the volume of the smaller shapes. So we have the cylinder and then the sphere, which is made up of the two halves. And the volume formula for cylinders is pi times r squared times height. So I'm going to leave pi to the very last part of the problem, but you just sub in the radius of the cylinder, which is 6 meters shown here, and the height of the cylinder, which is 11 meters. So you have pi times 6 meters squared times 11 meters, which will give you pi times 36 times 11, which eventually gives you 1,243.44 meters cubed. And then to find the volume of the sphere, you take 4/3 times pi r cubed, and the radius is 6 meters. So when you take 4/3 times 3.14 on and on times 6 cubed, you get 904.32 meters cubed. And then you add the two volumes together to get a total of 2,147.76 meters cubed. Now to review, the 3 steps you have to remember is to split the composite shape into smaller, simple shapes that you know the formula of, and then you find the volume of each of those smaller shapes, and then you add each volume. And that's all you have to do to find the formula of a composite shape.